Dog rejected by everyone at the shelter was adopted by an elderly lady, and one day that dog did something unbelievable, leaving the neighbors shocked and frightened. Charlotte was a dog who always seemed sad. She lived in an animal shelter called Hogar para Mascotas, where Amelia took care of many dogs in need of help. The place was small but cozy, filled with dogs of all kinds, big, small, playful, quiet. But Charlotte was different. She didn't run or bark like the others. She stayed in her corner, watching the people who came to visit the shelter, as if waiting for something that never came. She wasn't young anymore. Her coat had some gray strands, and her eyes carried the expression of someone who had suffered a lot. Whenever someone came looking for a dog to adopt, they passed right by her. They wanted puppies, dogs that jumped and played. But Charlotte just sat there, quietly, as if she knew no one would choose her. Amelia felt sorry for her. "Poor Charlotte," she would say. "Will anyone ever see how special you are? Now tell me, if you visited a shelter and saw a dog like Charlotte, would you choose her?" Charlotte didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change. Sofia Lopez was a calm, gentle woman. She lived alone in a simple house with a garden full of colorful flowers. Sofia spent her days tending to her plants, reading books, and sipping coffee on the porch. But even with all that, she felt something she couldn't quite explain, a void, as if something was missing to make her home truly happy. Sofia had 2 children, but they lived far away in other cities and could only visit occasionally. Since her husband, Miguel, had passed away, Sofia felt lonelier each day. Sometimes, she even spoke out loud to her plants, just to hear some sound in the house. Her best friend, Clara, began to notice. "Sofia, you need company," she said during a visit. "A dog would be perfect for you. They bring life to a house, you know?" Sofia laughed but started thinking about it. She had never had a dog before, but Clara seemed so sure. After much insistence from her friend, Sofia decided to visit the animal shelter. "Maybe I'll find someone to keep me company," she thought, with a mix of hope and doubt. Sofia didn't know yet, but that day at the shelter would change her life forever. The next day, Sofia put on a light dress and grabbed her handbag. She was still a bit nervous about the idea of going to an animal shelter, but Clara's voice echoed in her head, "Go, Sofia. It's exactly what you need." When she arrived at the Hogar para Mascotas shelter, she was greeted by Amelia, a cheerful and welcoming woman. The place was simple but full of life. Dogs of all sizes ran around, barked, and jumped at the fences, trying to catch the attention of visitors. Sofia began walking among the kennels, observing each dog. Many were puppies, playful and full of energy. They jumped and wagged their tails, as if saying, "Pick me, pick me." Sofia smiled at their joy, but something still didn't feel quite right. Then she saw Charlotte. The dog was in the corner of a kennel, sitting quietly with her ears slightly drooped and a faraway look in her eyes. She didn't run or bark like the others. She just watched. Sofia stopped. Something about that dog caught her attention. "Who is she?" Sofia asked, pointing to Charlotte. Amelia looked at the kennel and sighed. "That's Charlotte. She's been here for months, but no one wants to take her home. She's very calm, you see? People prefer dogs that are more lively. Plus, she's not very young anymore." Sofia approached the fence, her heart heavy. She couldn't stop looking into Charlotte's eyes. They were sad but, at the same time, held something that seemed to be asking for just one chance. Amelia opened the kennel gate and called, "Come here, Charlotte." The dog got up slowly and walked toward Sofia. She didn't jump or bark, she just rested her head on Sofia's hands. In that moment, Sofia felt a tightness in her chest, but it wasn't sadness. It was as if Charlotte was saying, "I just need someone to care for me." Sofia gently stroked her head and whispered, "Hello, girl. Would you like to come with me?" Amelia smiled. "It looks like she chose you, Sofia. And can I say, you made a great choice." Sofia didn't hesitate. She knew this dog was different, and they had something in common. Both were lonely, waiting for something to bring meaning to their lives. "Now tell me, if you were Sofia, would you have chosen Charlotte? Or would you have gone with one of the playful puppies?" Sophia signed the adoption papers and took Charlotte home. Little did she know that this dog, rejected by so many, would end up saving her life. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me what city you're from and subscribe to the channel if you love animals and their heartwarming stories. When they arrived home, Sophia slowly opened the gate and looked at Charlotte. "Welcome, girl. This is your home now," she said with a warm smile. Charlotte, however, seemed hesitant. She stood still at the entrance, as if she couldn't believe that place was really for her. Sophia waited patiently, sitting on a small bench near the gate. After a few minutes, Charlotte took one step, then another, and entered. She began exploring the place slowly, her tail low. First, she went to the garden, sniffed the flowers, walked around the trees, and then went inside the house. Sophia followed her from a distance, not rushing her. "Take your time, girl. It's okay," she murmured. Inside the house, Charlotte wandered through the rooms, sniffing everything. When she reached the living room, she found a brand new dog bed with a soft blanket that Sophia had prepared before going to the shelter. Next to the bed, there was a bowl of fresh water and another with food. "I got these just for you," Sophia said, crouching beside the dog. "I hope you like them." Charlotte looked at Sophia and wagged her tail slightly for the first time. It was as if she was saying, "Thank you." In the first few days, Charlotte was very quiet. She still seemed a bit scared, as if she wasn't sure the place was safe. But Sophia was patient. Whenever Charlotte curled up in a corner, Sophia would sit beside her and talk calmly. "You know, I've been scared before too. When my Miguel passed away, I didn't know what to do. I think we're alike, aren't we?" she would say while gently stroking the dog's head. Gradually, Charlotte began to relax. She started following Sophia around the house, as if she wanted to make sure Sophia wouldn't disappear. When Sophia went out to the garden to care for her plants, Charlotte would lie down beside her, quietly watching. In no time, their relationship began to change. Charlotte started showing affection in subtle ways, resting her head on Sophia's lap or licking her hand. Sophia, on the other hand, noticed the house was no longer so silent. One morning, while Sophia was having coffee on the porch, Charlotte brought something in her mouth, a leaf that had fallen from a plant. Sophia laughed. "Are you trying to help me in the garden now, girl?" she said, picking up the leaf. Charlotte wagged her tail more vigorously this time. She seemed happy, as if she finally understood that this place was her home. "And you? Have you ever had a pet that, even being quiet, changed the atmosphere of your home?" Sophia began to notice that since Charlotte arrived, she herself was changing. Before, she spent her days alone, with a void that seemed never-ending. Now, every morning felt lighter, and every night was accompanied by the peaceful presence of Charlotte, who slept at the foot of her bed. "You've brought life to this house, Charlotte," Sophia would say, always with a smile on her face. As the days went by, Charlotte and Sophia began to form a bond that went far beyond companionship. With every small gesture, the dog showed she was there not only to receive love but also to give it. At first, Sophia thought Charlotte was just shy, but she soon realized the dog was always alert. If Sophia went to the garden, Charlotte would follow and lie nearby, as if standing guard. When Sophia went out for groceries and came back, Charlotte would be waiting at the door, wagging her tail with joy. One of the things that impressed Sophia the most was how Charlotte seemed to understand her emotions. On harder days, when Sophia felt tired or down, Charlotte would rest her head on her lap and stay there, quietly. It was as if she was saying, "I'm here for you." One time, while rearranging furniture in the living room, Sophia accidentally bumped her leg against a corner. She sat on the couch in pain, holding her knee, and Charlotte quickly ran to her. The dog pressed her nose against Sophia's hand, as if checking if she was okay. Sophia looked at her and smiled. "You take care of me, don't you, girl? Don't worry, it's just a bump." This kind of thing became common. Sophia noticed that Charlotte was never far away, always paying attention to everything that happened. It was as if the dog could sense that her new owner needed protection and affection. Before Charlotte arrived, Sophia lived in silence. But now, she found herself talking all the time. "Shall we go for a walk, Charlotte? Are you hungry, girl? Did you know you're the best companion I've ever had?" The house, which once felt empty, was now full of conversations, even if one side could only respond by wagging her tail. Sophia felt her life was changing. She was no longer the lonely woman who spent her days in silence. Now, she had someone who made her feel important, someone who waited for her at the door, someone who insisted on staying by her side. Have you ever had a pet that seemed to know when you were sad or happy? As if they could feel what you were going through? Charlotte, despite being a dog rejected by many, proved that her love and loyalty were unconditional. For Sophia, this was more than just companionship. It was proof that sometimes those who need help the most are the ones with the most to give. The morning began like any other at Sophia's house. The sun streamed through the windows, lighting up the small garden filled with colorful flowers. Sophia woke up early, had her coffee with milk, and went outside to tend to the plants, one of her favorite pastimes. Charlotte, as usual, followed her. The dog lay nearby, watching Sophia's every move, as if making sure everything was under control. Every now and then, she would get up to sniff a flower or chase off a curious bird. After some time in the garden, Sophia started feeling the heat of the sun growing stronger. "Let's go inside, Charlotte. It's getting too hot out here," she said, slowly getting up. The dog immediately stood as well, as if she understood her owner needed company. Inside the house, Sophia headed to the kitchen to prepare something to eat. Charlotte, loyal to her routine, lay down on the rug near the sink, where she could watch Sophia as she cooked. It was a calm day, much like the many others they had shared. While washing the dishes, Sophia began to feel something strange. A light pressure in her chest, as if someone was squeezing her heart. She paused for a moment, holding on to the sink, and took a deep breath. "I must be tired, or maybe it's just my age," she thought, trying to convince herself it was nothing serious. But the pressure didn't go away. On the contrary, it grew stronger. Sophia felt a wave of heat rise through her body, and her hands began to tremble. Her breathing became shorter, and a faint ringing started in her ears. She tried to walk to the table to sit down, but her legs gave out. Charlotte, who had been lying down, immediately got up. The dog could sense something was wrong. She approached Sophia, looking at her with worried eyes, as her owner leaned against the nearest chair. Calm down, it will pass," Sophia murmured to herself, trying to regain control. But the pain in her chest grew more intense, and her vision began to blur. When she tried to take another step, her leg simply gave out, and she collapsed onto the kitchen floor. Charlotte ran to Sophia, barking for the first time since arriving at the house. The dog circled around her, as if trying to understand what was happening. Sophia lay on her side, clutching her chest and struggling to breathe, but it became increasingly difficult. Charlotte knew Sophia needed help. Even without fully understanding the situation, she began barking louder, running to the front door. She scratched at the wood with her paws and jumped at the handle, but the door was locked. The dog ran back to Sophia, still lying motionless on the floor. Charlotte whimpered, trying to get her attention. When Sophia didn't respond, the dog stood up again and returned to the door, barking even louder. Daphne, Sophia's neighbor, was outside watering her plants when she heard the loud and desperate barking. "That's not normal," she thought, setting the watering can down. Daphne knew Charlotte was a calm dog who never made noise for no reason. Something was wrong. Daphne walked to the house and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Charlotte's barking continued, even louder and more persistent. "Sophia? Is everything okay in there?" she called, growing concerned. When Daphne realized something serious was happening, she called her husband, Javier. He broke the door down, and they rushed inside. As soon as the door opened, Charlotte darted toward Sophia, as if to say, "Come quickly, she's here." Seeing Sophia collapsed on the floor, Daphne was shocked. "Javier, call an ambulance. Now!" she shouted. Meanwhile, Charlotte stayed by Sophia's side, licking her hand and letting out soft whimpers, as if trying to let her know she wasn't alone. Thanks to Charlotte's alert, the ambulance arrived quickly. The paramedics said Sophia was having a heart attack and that if they had been even a few minutes later, she wouldn't have survived. Charlotte wasn't allowed to ride in the ambulance, but she stayed with Daphne and Javier, watching the vehicle drive away. It was as if the dog knew she had done her part and now could only wait. When Sophia opened her eyes in the hospital, the first thing she saw was Daphne's worried face. The white light in the room was bright, and everything felt confusing. Sophia tried to sit up but felt weak. "Take it easy, Sophia," Daphne said, holding her hand. "You had a heart attack. The doctors said you're going to be fine, but it was close." Sophia blinked a few times, trying to understand. A heart attack? She didn't remember much. Just the chest pain, falling in the kitchen, and suddenly she asked, "And Charlotte? Where's my girl? Is she okay?" Daphne smiled. "Charlotte's fine, Sophia. She saved your life. If it weren't for her, I would have never known something was wrong. She wouldn't stop barking and scratching at the door. She's the one who alerted us." Sophia felt her eyes fill with tears. She had always known Charlotte was special, but she never imagined that this dog, rejected so many times, would be the one to save her life. During Sophia's stay in the hospital, Daphne and Javier took care of Charlotte. They said the dog seemed restless, always looking at the door as if waiting for Sophia to return. "She misses you," Daphne said during one of her visits to the hospital. "You've become everything to her, Sophia. And she knows you need her too." Those words deeply moved Sophia. She hadn't felt so important to someone since her husband's passing. And now, there was a dog waiting for her, the same one who risked everything to call for help when she needed it most. A few days later, Sophia was finally discharged from the hospital. Daphne and Javier drove her back home, but the truly emotional moment came when they opened the door and Charlotte saw her. The dog was lying on the living room rug. As soon as she heard Sophia's footsteps, she ran toward her, wagging her tail so hard it seemed like she might lose her balance. Charlotte let out small barks and jumped excitedly around Sophia, clearly overjoyed to see her back. Sophia knelt down with some difficulty and opened her arms. "My girl! I missed you so much," she said, as Charlotte licked her face. Sophia hugged the dog as if she never wanted to let her go. After a while, when Sophia settled into her favorite armchair, she looked at Charlotte, who was lying beside her with her head resting on Sophia's lap. Sophia gently stroked the dog's soft fur and thought about everything that had happened. "You saved me, you know," Sophia said with a choked voice. "If it weren't for you, Charlotte, I wouldn't be here now. You're my hero." Charlotte didn't understand the words, but she seemed to sense their meaning. She closed her eyes and let out a sigh, as if she was finally at peace seeing Sophia back home. From that day on, Sophia looked at Charlotte with even more gratitude. Every walk in the garden, every quiet moment in the living room, every small gesture from the dog reminded Sophia that she was alive thanks to her. And Charlotte? Well, she remained as loyal as ever. But something was different in her demeanor. She seemed even more protective, even more connected to Sophia. Now imagine, how do you think Sophia felt knowing that this dog, rejected so many times, was the reason she was alive? Would you feel the same gratitude she did? Sophia's home had never felt as warm as it did that day. The sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the small garden, while birdsong filled the air. But none of that mattered to Sophia in that moment. All she wanted was to be with Charlotte, her faithful companion who had waited so anxiously for her. When the door opened, Charlotte was lying on the living room rug as usual. But the moment she heard the door, she jumped up. Her eyes, once filled with sadness, now sparkled with joy. Her tail wagged so quickly it looked like a fan. Sophia took her first step inside, leaning on Daphne for support, still weak but determined to greet her dog. As soon as Charlotte saw her, she ran toward her, letting out excited little barks as if she were telling Sophia everything that had happened while she was gone. Sophia knelt down slowly despite the pain in her body. She opened her arms, and Charlotte threw herself into them, licking Sophia's face non-stop. Tears began to stream down Sophia's cheeks. "My girl, I knew you were waiting for me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Charlotte seemed unwilling to let go. She stayed pressed against Sophia, as if wanting to make sure she was really back. Daphne and Javier, watching the scene, were also moved. "She never stopped waiting for you, Sophia," Daphne said. She stayed by the door every day, as if she knew you'd come back. "I don't deserve you, Charlotte," Sophia murmured, still hugging the dog. "But I promise I'll never leave you alone again." Sophia carefully stood up and went to her favorite armchair, where Charlotte quickly lay down at her feet, as if nothing else mattered except being close to her. Sophia looked around and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: gratitude for her life and for the home that now felt transformed by Charlotte's presence. As she rested, Sophia thought about everything that had happened. The image of Charlotte barking desperately, calling for help, flashed in her mind. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here now. You saved my life," she said, stroking the dog's head. The days that followed were a time of adjustment. Sophia had to take care of herself, follow her diet, and adhere to the doctor's recommendations, but now she had something that made everything seem easier: Charlotte. The dog followed her around the house, paying even closer attention to her movements. It was as if she knew Sophia needed special care. When Sophia went to the garden, Charlotte was always nearby, watching and making sure everything was okay. At night, when Sophia went to bed, the dog would lie beside it, like a guardian. "I thought I was rescuing you, but it turns out you rescued me," Sophia said one night, looking at Charlotte. And it was true. Sophia realized her life had completely changed since Charlotte came into her home. Before, she lived alone, with no one to share her days or her small joys. Now, every moment felt more special because she had a loyal companion by her side. Charlotte, in turn, seemed to have found her purpose. From a rejected dog, she became the center of a home filled with love. And the most impressive part was how she gave back everything she received, with a loyalty and care greater than anything Sophia could have imagined. Sophia knew that after that day, nothing would ever be the same. She had more than just a dog. She had a friend, a protector, someone who made her feel important and loved. The home that once felt empty was now full of life. The days that followed were unlike anything Sophia had experienced before. Every morning began with Charlotte by her side, ready to accompany her in any activity. Sophia had to follow the doctor's recommendations: light walks, a balanced diet, and avoiding strenuous activities. But with Charlotte by her side, even the simplest tasks felt special. Each day, Sophia realized her life was no longer lonely. Charlotte was always there, not just as a companion, but as someone she could completely rely on. The dog followed Sophia's every step, always attentive. When Sophia sat on the porch, Charlotte lay close to her chair, as if to say, "Don't worry, I'm here." One afternoon, while watering her plants, Sophia stopped and looked at Charlotte, who was watching her intently. She remembered the day she first saw her at the shelter. That rejected dog, ignored by everyone, had changed her life. "Do you know what you did for me, Charlotte?" she said, sitting down next to the dog. "You didn't just save my life that day. You gave me a reason to live again." Sophia thought about how she had lived before. The empty days, the silent house, the feeling that something was missing. Now, all of that seemed so far away. Charlotte brought not only joy but also the certainty that Sophia would never be alone again. Sophia began sharing her story with friends and neighbors. Everyone wanted to know about Charlotte, the dog who saved her owner. Javier, the neighbor who helped during the rescue, often joked, "Charlotte is more than a dog. She's a hero." The neighborhood children, always curious, came to visit Sophia to see Charlotte. The dog, who used to be shy, now wagged her tail for everyone, showing that she, too, had transformed. Sophia started to realize that rescuing Charlotte had done more than change both their lives. Their story touched everyone who heard it, inspiring others to give rejected animals a chance. Before Charlotte, Sophia believed her best days were behind her. But now, with the dog by her side, she felt that every day was a new opportunity. She took care of herself not just because the doctors recommended it, but because she knew Charlotte needed her. "You've given me a reason to keep going, girl," Sophia would say, always stroking Charlotte's soft fur. "And I'll do the same for you." Charlotte, who was once rejected, was now the heart of a home filled with love and gratitude. Sophia and Charlotte's story is proof that love can transform everything. When Sophia chose Charlotte at the shelter, she thought she was just rescuing a dog. But, in reality, she was being rescued too. "And you?" Have you ever thought that by saving someone, whether an animal or a person, you might also be saving yourself? Leave a comment with your thoughts on this story, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel to keep hearing our stories.